Hi, so I am going to show you some techniques and how to use the materials you have for gouache. So you see, I have all my paints here. They are all the same brand, which was stated in your syllabus. You want to get the same brand because the different brands, their color spectrum might be a little bit different. So you want them to be consistent. And I have my container of water. When I'm done with my water, I just store all my paints in here. So that's a nice way to contain everything. So I had started doing swatches and then I put them underneath my wheel. And one thing you want to be careful about is not to have your pets around when you do this, because I had this full container of water and the cat knocked it down. You see, he has gotten my grayscale value finder wet, which obviously right here we can see that's changed the grayscale there. So I am potentially going to have to buy a new one if it doesn't dry perfectly. But in doing this, I also wasn't completely happy with what I've gotten. You know, this looks a little, that looks pretty close. This one doesn't look quite dark. This definitely doesn't look dark enough. So I'm going to go back and do this again. Now notice my value scale has a much warmer gray than my paint, which is fine. What we're really doing is getting the value the same and not worried about exactly what the color in the gray is, okay? So I'm going to set this aside a moment. Now I have my cork-backed ruler, and all these little squares are an inch. So you see they're an inch that way and an inch this way. And so when I paint them though, I need to overpaint because I'm going to trim out the shape. So you can see here, I went over and trimmed out from within there. So an easy way to do this is to just take my ruler here and I'm going to draw two lines just like that, because I know that my ruler is actually more than an inch. So you can see here that it's about 1.25 inches. So I do that so that I have that extra overprinting. Now I'm going to take my triangle and I am going to align it evenly with one of the lines and draw. And then I'm going to make sure I have at least 1 inch there. It doesn't need to be perfect at this point, but I do like to get them pretty squared off so that the corner angles are 90-degree angles. You don't want to end up having your pieces not at right angles when you try to put them together if they're not cut at nice right angles. Actually, what I should be doing is adding a little space between for my over painting. Okay, so I would continue to work like that, and I'll stop doing this now and put this aside. Okay, so I have also a rag or paper towels nearby, and I have my paint tray here. So I add white at one side, and I have my black at the other already. And you want to make sure you mix your paints very well, and it takes just a teeny bit of black to dilute white. My brush is a little bit too wet, so I dried it out a little, because if you add too much water, your paints can become too transparent. So I'm going to put some white in this part here. So you see how much white I've added. And now I'm going to add a hair of black. I'm just dipping it in there and adding that black in there. A little bit more. But just, I'm very tentative in adding the black, because look, see how fast that got to be too dark? So anyway, I've mixed this color. It's too dark for my first step, but that's okay. I'm gonna have to do lots of steps. So while I have it mixed out, one of the things I'm doing is I'm taking the extra paint off my brush and I'm mixing it all very well so it doesn't get streaky with little bits of gray or white. And then I'm going to paint nice and smoothly. So now see the way you don't see my pencil mark through the paint. So that tells me that this is a nice opaque color, which means that you're not seeing extra white of the paper through it. So when I look at it, I want to make sure it's all even. Okay, and so that was an accident, that, because I'd added too much. So I'm going to start over again. I'm going to clean my brush again. I'm going to mix in this section now. I'll try this section. I keep white on one side and black on the other because you can quickly dirty up your paint, especially the white. So I'm going to add a little more white over here, and then a hair of black. Yep, that's probably just enough. And I'm mixing it again, scraping the extra paint off the brush and mixing that in there. Get it all nice and mixed. And then what I do is I put a little dab on the side of the paper and I look at it with my view scale, okay? So that looks pretty close, but the paint dries slightly darker, so it looks very close now. It might end up being too close, but I'm going to paint regardless here. Now this looks a little streaky, so I want to make sure it's even. It might not have mixed it enough, or it might be that there's too much water and you can see the white of the paper coming through. So I'm gonna try to smooth it out. And allow it to dry. Okay. And then I'm going to again add the white here. A touch of black. So what my goal is this time is to get it still that first step, but just a little bit lighter than what I did last time, because it's going to dry darker, but that seems like it might be too light. They're so close there, but I've got it mixed up, so I'm just going to go, because it doesn't hurt to paint more, because it's a pain in the neck if you're missing one step and you're going back trying to recreate that. So if you've got it, just paint it down, okay? So I'm going to continue doing that through the whole grayscale, that same way, just adding white and black.